Right, well, good morning, you frozen chosen. Yeah, glad to see the air conditions are working really well today because it's freezing in here. But winter's on its way, so we're grateful for the change of seasons, but we're more grateful that God is always faithful. And so we're going to continue our theme this morning. We've been looking at our theme for the year is to rebuild, restore, and renew. And this morning I want to look at the concept of building altars. Building altars. And so if you go to Bibles, you can turn to Genesis. Finally, an easy one to find. Genesis chapter 12, right in the beginning of the Bible. And there's a very interesting chap who we introduced to you here, who's quite well known in the Christian faith, by a guy by the name of Abram, who becomes Abraham. And Abraham, even though he's the father of faith, the father of many, he's also known as the man of altars. Because we're going to see in his life that whenever he has an encounter with God, the first thing he does is he builds an altar. And we're going to look at what does it mean for us today? What kind of altars should we be building? And so we pick it up in Genesis chapter 12, beautiful little place there. And we're going to see that throughout scriptures, the altar was a place where really people encountered God. They came and they met with God, and they came to have an encounter with God. The altar became a place of forgiveness, especially in the temple. There was the brazen altar, and that was where you came to just repent and to call upon God and ask for God's forgiveness. The altar became a symbol of worship in the Old and in the New Testament. It's where you went to just worship God. The altar became a place of promise. They would build these altars to remind them of promises that they'd made to God and promises that God had made to them. The altar became a place of prayer. And as we're going to look in the story of Abraham, we're going to find 6 functions of the altar that we can still use today. And so let's pick it up. And I want to start at the beginning of chapter 12 because it really just gives the context of what's going on here. And it starts, chapter 12 verse 1. Now the Lord said to Abram, "Get out of your country, from your family, from your father's house, to the land that I will show you. And I will make you a great nation. I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you shall be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse him who curses you. And in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed." This is the first time we have an encounter where God is really interacting with someone other than Adam. We find where God was walking in the garden with Adam, and then we have the story of the flood and all these things going on, and then God steps in again. And he chooses this man named Abraham out of a pagan religious background. God comes to this guy caught in idolatry and idol worship and pulls him out of this and says to him, "Abraham, I've got a special plan for you. I'm going to start a new people group. I'm going to start a new religion, a new relationship. And it's going to start with you. But here's what it's going to cost you. You've got to come out of where you are. You've got to leave the Canaanite religion, the Canaanite gods. You've got to leave your family who are steeped in this idol worship of the Canaanites. You've got to leave all of that behind. You've got to leave everything you know. You've got to sacrifice everything and just follow my voice." But if you do that, Abraham, if you are willing to give up everything to follow the true living God, you will be blessed. And then in verse 4 it says, "So Abram departed as the Lord had spoken to him, and Lot went with him. Abraham was 75 years old when he departed from Haran." This is not a young man. This is a man for 75 years has worshipped Canaanite gods, has worshipped an empty religion. And then he has an encounter with God at the age of 75. God says, "I want you to give up everything and move." Can you imagine at the age of 75 giving up everything and starting afresh? Going where you don't know where, how are you going to live, how are you going to look after yourself, how are you going to provide? God just says, just go. And so he does, him and Lot. So Abraham took Sarah, his wife, and Lot, his brother's son, and all their possessions, and all they gathered, and all the people whom they had acquired in Haran. And they departed to go to the land of Canaan. And so they came to the land of Canaan. And Abraham passed through the land in the place of Shechem, as far as the terebinth tree. And the Canaanites were there in the land. And the Lord appeared to Abraham and said, to your descendants I will give this land. He gets into the promised land. God says to him, Abraham, look at this land. All of this is yours. Man, what a revelation. What an encounter with God. God says to you, all this blessing I have for you because of your obedience. And there he built an altar to the Lord who appeared to him. He recognized that this God was something special. He recognized that this was a God of promise. This was a God who keeps his word. And he built an altar there. You see, it became his place of worship. When Abraham took stones and built that altar, it wasn't the stones that mattered. It was the intent of his heart. He was setting up an official, formal place that he would worship this new God that he didn't encounter with. It wasn't a casual meeting. It was Abraham saying to God, God, I'm not your equal, but you are my God. And we are going to have this relationship from now on where you are going to be my God and I'm going to be your servant. He recognized this was the great King. This was the God who was the Creator, coming and having a relationship with him. And so he set up this altar to recognize that God, this is my place where I'm coming to seek you. You see, he recognized that God deserved worship. God deserved something special. And all he could find was rocks. And so he put these rocks together and said, this God is in honor of you. It doesn't tell us how big this was, doesn't tell us what it looked like. But there was work involved. There was commitment involved. There was an attitude of, God, I recognize that you deserve something. You deserve worship. And that's what building an altar is about. It's about just getting to that place where we say, God, you deserve something special. You deserve to be the center. Before he builds houses, before he settles, the first thing he does, he says, God, you need your place. You need to be center. Because I need to worship you. And so he builds this place of worship. And then in verse 8 it says, and he moved from there to the mountains east of Bethel. And he pitched his tent in Bethel, west of Ai. And there he built an altar to the Lord and called on the name of the Lord. He moves to his next little place. He sets up his tent, and the first thing he does, builds another altar. Saying, God, you've moved with me. I didn't leave you back there. This is Abraham saying, God, where I go, you go. When I stop, I'm going to make an altar to recognize and to remind myself, God is here with me in this place. But not only what did he say to God, God, this is your representation, this is God's place, but it became a place where he called unto God. You see, the altar is not just me worshiping God, but it's my time of just calling out to God. The altar is the place of prayer. It's when we place God as that center figure in our lives. When we call unto him. You see, Abraham didn't just willy-nilly pray to God. When he wanted to talk to God, he went to God's altar. And he kneeled at that altar. And he spent time with God. Each one of us needs an altar of prayer Not just a specific time, but we need to make that a focus time. Our time when we go to our altar of prayer. You know, I remember the story of Daniel when they needed to catch Daniel out. And they knew Daniel was so in his habit of prayer that they knew that was how to catch him. They said, no prayer from now on. And what did Daniel do? Opened his window, got on his knees, because that was his time of prayer. I mean, he wasn't going to let any law, any government stop that. He went to his altar, and he said, at this altar I pray. And he got on his knees, he lifted his hands to the heavens, and he prayed. You see, so often we say, God, I'll take my prayer time more serious when I've got more time. But right now I'm so busy. You know, when things get busy and things get hectic, you know what the first thing we sacrifice? Our quiet time and our prayer time. It's often the first thing to go. And that should be the altar. That should be the last thing that we sacrifice. Everything else can be put aside. But our time at the altar, our time of prayer, needs to be fixed, needs to be constant, needs to be daily. We need to say to God, God, you are the center of my life. And I start with you. I start my day at the altar of prayer. You see, Abraham needed something tangible, something he could see, that he could go to. Sometimes it's good to have a tangible place. That's what I think the Hindus got right when they have their prayer garden. They've dedicated a piece of their garden where they go to, because that's where they go to meet God. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we had that? A little space in our garden where we say, God, this is your little corner. And I put my chair there, and I go and I just spend time with God. That's my altar. I know for some it's just a quiet place. I remember some of these early missionary moms, I can't remember which one it was, but she had so many kids in this house, and she didn't have a quiet spot. Do you know what she did? She took her apron, she put it over their head. When the kids came home and they saw mom with the apron over, they said, leave mom, she's praying. That's mom's time at the altar. Do you have a place like that? Where you can just switch off the phone, switch off the TV, just be quiet with God. Church, you need a place of an altar. A place where it's just you and God. Where you can come and call out to God. And so Abraham journeyed, going still towards the south. Jump to chapter 13. He goes to Egypt. There's a bit of famine going on, and he messes up in Egypt, and he claims that his wife is his sister, and he just has this terrible experience in Egypt. But then chapter 13 picks up again. So Abraham went from Egypt, he and his wife and all that he had, and Lot with him, and they went to the south. And Abraham was very rich in livestock, in silver and in gold. And he went on his journey from the south as far as Bethel, to the place where his tent had been at the beginning, between Bethel and Ai, to the place of the altar that he had made at first. He has this bad experience in Egypt. You know what he does? He goes back to his altar for a time of refreshing, for a time of renewal, for a time of just saying, God, I tried to do it on my own and I messed up. I'm coming back to my altar. You see, the altar is a place of revelation. It's a place where we come to seek God's face again. It's a place where we come when we don't know what to do next. You know, some of the most amazing encounters, the most amazing revelations that God had were at places of the altar. I think of the story of Elijah, where the prophets of Baal and God's prophets were challenging who's the real God. God says to Elijah, let's show them once and for all who is the real God. And the prophets of Baal did their dance and they cut themselves and they worshipped and they cried out to the god of fire, Baal. But there was nothing. And then Elijah builds his altar. And he says, God, reveal yourself to these people. Show who you are. A God of fire. A God of power. You see, the altar is where we say, God, I need you to reveal yourself to me. I need a fresh revelation of who you are. I need an encounter where God reminds me just who he is. Because when you have an encounter at the altar, you don't leave the same. And all those people that saw that fire fall, they had an encounter with God. And this is what happens at the altar here. And there Abraham called on the name of the Lord. You see, the altar became a place of seeking God's revelation. It's just say, God, just reveal yourself to be Jehovah Jireh, my provider. God, reveal yourself to be my healer. Reveal yourself to be my banner. What do you need God to reveal himself to be to you right now? What crisis are you in? Maybe it's time to go to the altar and say, God, I need you to reveal yourself afresh to me. I need to connect with you in a new and a fresh way. That happens at the altar. The altar is a place where we come back to and say, God, I've neglected, but I want to come back to that altar. Abraham came back to the altar to refresh and to renew his time with God. The altar also became a place of thanksgiving. The altar was a place where Abraham came and gave thanks for the amazing covenant and promises that God had made. Throughout the Old Testament sacrifices and thanksgiving were mentioned together that happened at these altars. We think of Psalm 43 verse 4. Then I will go to the altar of my God, my joy and my delight, and I will praise you with a harp, O God, my God. Psalm 116 verse 17, I will sacrifice a thank offering to you and call upon the name of the Lord. You see, the place of the altar is not just where we go to say, God, I'm in crisis. It's where we go to say, God, you are amazing and you have done great things. It's where we go to say thank you. So often we get so much from God. We're so blessed. But sometimes we forget to go to the altar and just say, God, you are faithful. And you are great. And you've answered yet again our prayers. The altar was a place where Abraham went to thank the Lord. Hebrews 13:15 says, let us continually offer to God a sacrifice of praise, the fruit of our lips. But Abraham had another altar. And it was when he went to build the altar to offer his son Isaac. We don't like that altar. We love the prayer altar. We love the worship altar. We love the thanksgiving altar. But we don't like it when God says, I want you to build a sacrifice altar. I want you to give up something. Can you imagine when God called Abraham? He said, Abraham, remember that promise I made? Multitude, blessings, and I gave you that son Isaac. Here's what I want you to do. Take your son, your only son, take him to the mountain and build another altar there. And on that altar, I want you to give up your son, your only son. Let me tell you what, when you want to build an altar in your life, there's going to come a time when God's going to say, I need you to show just how much you trust me. God's going to come to you and say, I need you to show me just how much you love me. I need you to show me just how much I am the center of your life. Here's how you do it. Build an altar. And on that altar, I want you to sacrifice. That time of the month, you're coming to the end of the month and you're looking at your bank balance and you think, might just make it to the end of the month. And God says, Jonathan, yes, Lord, I want you to take that last little bit in your bank. Yes, Lord, give it. Rebuke you, Satan. It's like, no. This is God. Do you trust me, Jonathan? Do you trust that if you give that last little bit in your bank, that I will take care of you? God, can't we go back to the worship altar? He says, do you trust me, Jonathan? Give. You know what's worse? He says, give it to Brett. But God, Brett's just bought a new car. Not Brett. You know what? It doesn't matter who. God says, Jonathan, are you willing? Are you willing to trust me at that altar of sacrifice? Are you willing to give up Facebook? But God, I need to know what's happening. Are you willing to give up your time? Are you willing to go and visit someone, even if they live in Howick? Saying, God, petrol's expensive. God says, I know. But are you willing to sacrifice something? Are you willing to give up? Because you know why? The sacrifice costs. Remember when David wanted to build an altar and the guys came and said, we'll sponsor it. He said, no. I don't want you to sponsor the animals. Because if I'm going to sacrifice to my God, it's got to cost me. It's got to be uncomfortable sometimes. But it became a place of sacrifice. What is God asking you to sacrifice? Time, money, some social media time. Maybe He's asking you to stop watching rugby on a Saturday and rather spend time in prayer. He hasn't said to me luckily yet. But maybe He's talking to you that. But have you got that altar ready? Say, God, if there's something I need to give up, that thing I'm holding on to, that thing that's so important to me, am I really willing to give that up for you? Some of the sacrifices that the Bible talks about that are pleasing to God, Psalm 51 says, the sacrifices of God are a broken spirit, a broken and contrite heart. You know what God really loves? Is when we come to that altar with a genuine heart and say, God, I want to be real with you. I want you to break my heart. I want to be so convicted of those things that I'm not supposed to be holding on to. I want to let them go. That hidden thing I'm holding on to, that temptation, that sin I'm holding on to, I want you to break my heart, God. That I can come repentant with tears in my eyes to say, God, I want to make right with you. Obedience is what God wants on these altars. He said to Samuel in 1 Samuel 15, does the Lord delight in burnt offerings as much as He does in the sacrifice of obeying the Lord? To obey is better than any sacrifice. To heed to what God is saying is better than any fat of rams. Maybe God is going to you this morning saying it's time to obey. God's been tugging at your heart saying, come on, you need to get moving, you need to get busy, get active. Maybe it's time to come to the altar to say, God, I'm willing to listen. I'm willing to do what you're telling me to do. The sacrifices God are looking on these altars is mercy and to walk humbly, he says in Micah chapter 6 verse 7 and 8. He has shown you, a man, what is good and what the Lord requires. Act justly, love mercy, walk humbly. You see, the thing with altars is when the altars get neglected, they start to break. And so maybe God is saying to you this morning, it's time to come and rebuild that altar. It's time to come and make that place where you are ready to take God serious. In 1 Kings 18, the story we just shared just now about Elijah, there's a verse in verse 30 that says this: Then Elijah called the people, "Come here to me." And they came to him, and he and the people repaired the altar that was in ruins. You see, the people had been worshipping Baal for so long that God's special altar had fallen apart, had been neglected. And Elijah says, it's time to fix God's altar. It's time to make God center again. It's time to make God important again in my life. And he fixed the altar. But you see, to do that, it's going to be an intentional thing. Just as it was for Abraham, he deliberately put down his tent and went and deliberately built an altar. God is saying, it's time to get deliberate and say, God, I need to build that altar again. It also needs to be done consistently. God is saying, you can't just come to God's altar once a year, once a month, once a week. God is looking for us to say, I need to come to my altar consistently every day. And thirdly, it needs to be a place of just rededicating, saying, God, I need you once again to be the center. Maybe God has spoken to you this morning and saying it's time to you to get that place. Whether it's somewhere at home, whether it's somewhere at work, whether it's somewhere in a little office, but just make yourself a little space where you can say, God, this is my little altar. And if you need to tangibly put something there, maybe it's a Bible, maybe it's something just to say, God, this little corner, this chair in my garden, this little spot in the church ground, that's my altar. My little spot in the cupboard. That's where I'm going to come, and I'm going to intentionally spend time with you. And I'm going to say, Lord, what do I need to thank you for? What do I need to call out to you for? Maybe what do I need to sacrifice? But I want to rebuild that altar. That place that just once again reminds me of who you are. And that you are the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. And you deserve to be important in my life. Father God, I pray this morning that you would just speak to us and anyone listening out there. Father, show us where we've maybe neglected our altar, where we've neglected to place you as the center of our lives. Help us to tangibly make that place, that time where we come and seek your face, that place where we come and worship you, that place where we come and call unto you, that place where we give you thanksgiving, and maybe this morning that place where we are asked by you to sacrifice something. Father, if our altar is in ruins at the moment, may we rebuild that altar. May we rebuild that place where you once again are the center and once again are important in our lives. Help us to redo that and to rebuild those altars. We ask in Jesus' precious name. Amen. Worship team, don't you want to come up?